Hello and welcome to Castival. This is the podcast which brings on brilliant guests to pitch their dream music festival. My name is Matt Hoss and I'm the host, and I'm here to guide you around their festival. Today's guest is a top-notch stand-up comedian, gamer, and paranormal podcaster. It's Barry Dodds. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. And thank you so much for coming on to Castival.
No, thank you for having me on.
We're going to be talking a lot about your music tastes, and I think any fans of Barry Dodds will kind of know what kind of ballpark. I think there's one band in particular which stands out.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the worst person you could have asked to do this, because a festival is all about having music and lots of bands, and I only like one. It's absolutely pointless. But we'll eke it out as much as we can.
I've never had it so early on, like literally a minute in, just going, yeah, you picked the wrong person here, mate.
You really have, yeah. You should have got. I'm going to be your worst one.
Yeah. No, it's already brilliant. to elaborate on that, if someone were to ask you what kind of music are you into, how do you typically respond to that question?
I would reply that I'm into electronic sort of synth, sort of. I like the 80s sound. I like the 90s sort of sound. I like some modern stuff, but I think some of the modern stuff does sound like the older stuff. Like, is it Blinding Lights by is it The Weeknd or something?
I'll be honest, I'm not very versed on like a lot of modern stuff. You know, I mean, a lot of like mainstream new stuff I'm kind of a bit out on, but I could Google
it's a very popular song. It's it's in the charts at the minute, so it's been around for a while. But yeah, that sound, when I heard it, I thought that it was an 80s track.
Oh,
and
really?
I had to ring a friend because she knows music, and I asked her, and she went, "Oh yeah, that's Blinding Lights." So yeah, very good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very specific sort of synth sound that I like.
When you sent over those bands over to me, because with every guest they send over 3 artists, and the first thing that came to my head is like, Barry loves synths. That's the kind of thing I've got from that as well. Very upbeat as well. And do you play any instruments, Barry?
I don't. It's a little bit of a regret. I mean, I think I wanted to learn the guitar when I was younger, but I think everybody wants to learn the guitar when they're younger because they want a guitar, because it sort of feels cool to hold and to strum. But I really struggle with it. Like at school, I just couldn't read music. I struggled with English.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, never mind music. So it was, I couldn't read music, and I found it I couldn't get my hands to work. I've got so much admiration for people who can play them, because I just can't. I mean, I'm quite a big gamer, so my hand-eye coordination should be amazing. But I just couldn't do it. But I think you've got to have a real talent to make a tune.
Absolutely.
And I struggle to do that. I think it's an amazing skill, people who can.
I think there's definitely a podcast in me teaching Barry Dodds how to play guitar, because I think that we could do that. Like it's a weekly installment. We'll see what happens.
You'd punch me. You'd hate it. You'd find me. You'd really hate me by the end of it.
I think we will start off the podcast going, "Yeah, you got the wrong person here, mate. Absolutely,
you got the wrong person. You get Duncan Oakley."
Very different podcast, yeah. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because I think my hand-eye coordinations are terrible as well. I struggle playing guitar, but I'm quite a determined soul. So if I've set my heart on something, I'll do it and I learn it. And so I started guitar when I was 14, but yeah, I struggle with a lot of the fiddly stuff even now. I love chords because it's like you can kind of just move your hand up and down the fretboard, but if it's anything fiddly, it takes me ages to learn as well. And
right,
yeah.
You see, I tried that Guitar Hero.
Yes,
because being a gamer, that was quite a big thing for a while. I couldn't do that either. I couldn't think about what the left hand was doing in terms of hitting the buttons and then hitting the thing. And I mean, my favorite musician of all time is a guy called Vince Clarke, and he admits he can't really play music. Like he says he's terrible at the guitar, and he doesn't really play keyboards. He's a programmer. so he knows how to program a synth and, you know, sort of program it. So, I mean, it's always been a thing of when you go to see my favourite band, like, do you know what? I'm jumping ahead of myself, so I'll stop myself there.
Okay. Well, I thought we're getting closer with mentions of Vince Clarke, but we'll get to them eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's really interesting as well, and it's I think a lot of people, especially in the modern age, like music is more about programming. It's all about there's a lot more nuance to it, I feel, and I think that's a really eloquent point. And so, did you ever go to many festivals? Because we're going to be talking about festivals. Have you been to many festivals?
I've never ever, like I said to you, I don't mind if you want to stop now because I've never been to one. Never been to, I've worked at them. I've been to Download Festival to perform, and really getting into the spirit of it. I was in and out within 4 hours. But I did go to a festival once, which was in Cheltenham, and I can't. Oh, the name of it completely escapes me. It was at Cheltenham Racecourse. Yeah, and it was again, there was a comedy tent, so I was one of the performers in there. We stayed for the 3 nights, so I got to do the camping thing and the sort of getting pissed and that experience of it. And I'll be honest with you, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I had such a good time, and like, I'm a big fan of camping. I really like camping. I mean, I haven't done it for quite a few years now, but I used to organise a comedian's camping trip. Amazing. And it was called Man and Nature. And it was me when I lived in Manchester, and it was just an open invite. It was just like, if you're a comedian, come along to this. And so we just end up with like 20 or 30 comedians up in the Lake District, just camping, and it was utter carnage. But I loved that whole just getting, you know, blind drunk and sitting around a fire and talking bollocks and all that. Yeah, I really enjoy camping. Well, so. I'm shocked that you haven't been to more festivals, because like that's obviously the backbone of it. You know, it's about it's kind of like the, as you say, that nature aspect of it, where you're kind of just sitting down, getting to basics, hanging out with friends. It's about community as well. I think. And I think music festivals do offer that as well. But I think it is dependent on the music as well. But sometimes it's not. Like especially with Glastonbury, you can kind of. It's about just experience rather than the music, if you know what I mean. It's about it might be worth looking into the future, especially with camping as well, because it's a real treat. I think I just always felt like I wasn't part of that world. Like, it was like I mean, you know, I thought it was for something for people who had a lot of money, and I thought it was for quote unquote the cool kids. Yeah, and so that just wasn't something that. In terms of seeing music live, I think I've only seen. I mean, I've seen I've seen one band live consistently, and I've seen their support acts, but I don't know if that counts as seeing a band live. I think it does, absolutely. Yeah. In that case, I've seen Sophie Ellis-Bextor. Oh, amazing! So yeah, Sophie Ellis-Bextor. She supported my favourite band in Cannock Chase. When I went to see them, and it was we'd been like, because I was one of the people who wanted to be at the front on the barrier, so I'm a get there at 9 a.m. person. So it was the worst day for it. It rained from start to finish. So I did the whole sitting outside for 10 hours, getting soaked with a hell of a lot of other people. And eventually, when they opened the gates, we all got down the front. There was then, you know, another hour while they get everyone else in, which was still just stood in the rain. Yeah. And Sophie Ellis-Bextor came on, and she was in a little cocktail dress. And of course, you know, the whole stage is covered. She comes on, she's in a little cocktail dress, and she comes on looking very prim. She goes, "Oh my God, you guys look like drowned rats." And some guy behind me just went, "Sing your fucking song." And she's like, "Oh." It was like, nobody had a sense of humour about it. So was that person you, Barry? Like, you don't have to lie. No, it wasn't me. I have been caught out. I have shouted out before a concert, and it was one which was being recorded, and I can't listen to the recording of the concert because I can hear me, and I've shouted something very out of character. Because I'm not somebody who would shout out at these sort of things, but so apart from that band and their support acts, I think I've only ever seen one other band live, and that was a band called Clam Abuse, which was a one-off project by somebody called Ginger Wildheart of the Wildhearts. He did this experimental album, and I saw that live because I had a friend called Ginger Wildheart who changed his name by Deedpool after the singer. That's how big a fan he was of this band. And I went, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, but it's not my sort of music. And yeah, there's not really many sort of electronic festivals. So
there are the dancey festivals, but like that's different from electronic necessarily. There's less synth festivals, but there are more like hardcore dance festivals or that kind of thing that you wanted to do. But like, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the same thing.
I went to one called is it Lost Village? Lost
People? Rings a bell.
Lost, and it was I've never seen as much skin in my life. It was in that height of summer, and it was this festival. And I thought, I think it's sort of electronic music, and it was just full of. I felt wrong being in there because it was just all these young trendy kids who are into trendy music, just basically putting themselves on show, but they're all trendy glitter all over their faces. That's not a euphemism. It was. I felt really awkward, and again there was that thing of like, no, I'm not one of these people. I'm not cool, and I'm not young anymore, and so
Oh, bless you. Well, what I've heard a couple of times is that you felt like a bit out of place, that you never really found your home there, and I talk a lot on the podcast about Download and that rock festival in the Midlands, and it's like my spiritual home, because I always feel like obviously I haven't been there since the pandemic, but it's kind of like my home away from home, because it's like the place where I went to as a teenager, and it's a place where a lot of where I saw my first bands ever in the world, and it like my first loves were there, my musical loves were there, and I think it's I felt like that was my little home, and I felt like an outcast the rest of the year, but once I was there, it was like that was like my little thing, my little home, and hopefully
it's 10 minutes away behind me.
Really? Yeah, because my auntie actually lives like literally in the village of Castle Donington as well, so okay. So I just stay not very rock and roll, but I stay on her couch and walk in every rock and roll.
You're meant to be camping, you're going on, you on. I tell you what, Ozzy Osbourne would not be happy if he knew that Matt Hoss was going to sleep at his fucking auntie's house in Castle Donington, which I imagine is quite middle class and posh.
Well, I have to argue, actually, it's probably more punk and rock and roll to sleep on your auntie's couch. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, like yeah, you can do your cannabis in your tent, whatever. But I've got to sleep with some cats on the couch. You know, rock and roll.
The fact that you called it cannabis, I think, sort of rules you out of the rock and roll. How have they not eaten you alive? I've been at that festival. Like no offense, Matt, but you don't look like one of them. Like,
yeah, I am.
You know what I mean? You look like you've had a wash. Sorry, that's really disrespectful to rockers. I'm sorry, anybody who goes to that festival. They're all lovely people.
Tell you what, we're not going to teach you how to play guitar anymore. It's not going to happen, mate. Not going to happen. Final question before we move into your festival: have you ever crowd surfed, Barry?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to check.
I think I'd like the experience.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had the opportunity to crowd surf, or has it been like it was there but you didn't want to do it? Or
no.
Yeah.
If it was there, I would have done it by now.
Mm-hmm. We got to get you to a rock show, and then we'll get it up and happening. And then on the way home, have a baguette and head to my auntie's house. Be good.
Do you know what? I always liked Download as a festival to perform at as a comedian, because it was the one gig. Because when I started doing comedy, I used to really like the darker side of humour. I used to like some dark jokes, but then the problem with that is that you split audiences, and I get really stressed and nervous at gigs anyway. So to know that I was going to alienate half of them with some of the things I was going to say, it was a double-edged sword. So in the end, I'm not very offensive on stage. I mean, I'm not clean as a whistle, you know, but I certainly don't come out with anything that would upset people. But Download as a gig was that place where I could go, right, all of these things that I've thought of in the last 12 months, this is the gig where I can say them, and it's going to be absolutely fine. And I used to love it because you could be as sick as you wanted, and it was great. There was that sort of that's what I mean. I do like the Rockers because they're sort of more liberal than liberals think they are, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that they kind of get a bad rep, particularly at Download and any metal fans, because like on the outside, a lot of people judge them pretty quickly and assume they're quite thuggish, but actually it's the opposite. These people are super caring.
Completely, yeah.
And it's part of the culture there, and it's about not being a dick. It's about helping each other. Obviously, there are bad eggs, and I think certain headliners attract certain audiences, but also I think the Download community as a whole is really, really wonderful. So, yeah, they do get bad rap, but also I think festivals are the time where you can do the more darker stuff, because I feel that festival gigs are hard because it's kind of like you're dealing with a lot of not the best circumstances, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of different things you have to play around with as well, like people talking, people moving around, and people coming in it. And so it's not the most ideal thing. But if you have quite a strong message or a strong thing, that sells quite well, because it's quite it goes down a treat.
Yeah, you've got to grab people's attention, and nothing will grab people more than a really sick gag. You know. So.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you're doing at your own festival. So let's go and set up camp. Hello, welcome to Season 3 of Castival. Great to have you back. If you like what we do, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and write us a little kind review. Also, why don't you share our podcast? Tell a friend about it. Word of mouth really helps spread the word, so please help us do that. Why don't you tweet at us at Castival Podcast and drop me a follow at Matt House Comedy. Why don't you watch me on Twitch at Matt House Comedy? If you like sci-fi books, why don't you buy my book called Purify from www.matthousecomedy.com. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Cheers. Castival, are you ready? Here we go! Get on your feet! If you know this one, sing along. So before we can have your dream music festival, we have to submit your festival. So let's find out some basic admin about Barry's festival. So Barry, what is the name of your festival?
I'm going to call it very unimaginatively.
Here we go.
It's going to be called Elektronika.
Okay.
Elektronika with a K.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Well, whereabouts is the K? Is it in the electric or Nika bit?
Both sides.
Oh, gotcha. I like it. To be fair, when you said it's going to be an original, I thought you were going to be kind of like the Dodds Fest or
Dodds Fest,
or maybe something like Doddsload or something like that.
Doddsload's a very, very different festival.
Yeah, that's afterwards. So
you don't get that in Castle Doddington.
That's why I stay on my auntie's couch.
Sorry, I've just realised how offensive that was to your auntie. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's funny. Yeah, she doesn't listen. It's fine. So it's Elektronika. It's I think that's a strong title, and also you got a strong. That's the kind of you're selling to your demographic. You know, you're putting it on the tin straight away. People know what they're going to get. So whereabouts geographically would you want your festival?
I quite like it. I was split on this one because I think down south you've got a better chance of good weather. But my ideal place would be somewhere in Northumberland.
Yes.
So like a big bit of open ground, because there's no festivals in Northumberland, and there's a hell of a lot of space to do them.
Yeah.
But it's just geographically, it's just difficult for people to get to. So I think Northumberland's well overdue a seriously big Glastonbury style festival. Elektronika wouldn't be that. I mean, Elektronika has only got one stage, if I'm honest with you. I've got some separate auxiliary tents, but
I think, Barry, I don't think you should be in charge of the PR of your festival, because it's only got one stage.
It's affordable, though.
Yeah. I feel I should be the PR for your festival, because the kind of concept of festival is that I'm kind of like the one trying to sell your festival as well. And so
right.
I kind of feel like I'd be like, yeah, it's got beautiful views of Northumberland. You know, it's affordable. It's bringing the best of electronic music to the heart of Northumberland. That's how you sell it. You know what I mean? That's
nice.
Do
you know what? I thought where we can do it as well. Do it at Bamborough.
Yes,
near the castle.
Lovely stuff. Yeah,
that'll look amazing at night. But and you know, you can always sneak off to the beach and go and have a bit of a beach party as well.
Absolutely. Do you know what time of year you'll be doing it? Would it be summer?
Summer, yeah.
When you said go off to the beach, I assumed that was summer, not winter. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, just pop to the beach, have a quick frozen dip.
There's no festivals run any other time of year, is there?
Well, yeah, actually, that's a very valid point. I guess it is mostly summer, but there are sometimes winter festivals. So sometimes there are in different parts of the world, there are different festivals as well. There's like skiing winter festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you are right, but it does sometimes it's a bit different.
Fair enough.
So, how many people would you like at this festival? Like, is there a certain capacity, or is there a certain amount of people that you would like to be there?
Now, you see, this one, I think I need a frame of reference. So, how many people does Download get? What's a sold-out Download?
From the top of my head, I think that it would be about 150,000. I think Glastonbury has 200,000, but I might be totally off there. But I think it's about roughly around that amount of people.
I think I've got to be realistic. I think it'll be about 75.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I think it'll be about half the size of Download. Maybe even 50. Maybe even a little bit smaller.
That's fine. You know what? That's really good. And what's really original about you, Barry, is that a lot of comedians I talk to on this are like, oh, I just want to be there by myself and enjoy the music, and you're like, I want as many people there as possible, which is so nice, because like everyone else is so just hating everyone, but you're like, you know what, let's get pumping, that'd be great. And I like that. It's really sweet. So without revealing the lineup, Barry, how much would you charge per ticket?
I would charge, because it's the 3-nighter. So you're doing a Thursday night, a Friday night, and a Saturday night. I think that's how I'm going to do it. Although I'm changing it. I'm doing it the one where everybody's off on the Monday, where it's a bank holiday.
Lovely.
So it's a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday night. And it's going to be £120 a ticket.
Lovely stuff.
So £40 a night. And you get your camping in that. And very specifically, everyone is allowed to bring their own booze to their tent and to the areas around the stages and all that. I've been to Download and some festival. I've never understood this con where you can't take your beer into the festival that you've paid to be at. That doesn't sit right with me. You can take in there's bars and you can do that, but I've also got regulations for the bars and that they've got to charge normal pub prices.
Yeah, because that's it's so annoying when you get like a thimble of Carlsberg for £4, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like
the worst lager known to man as well. Carlsberg, it's like drinking Vickers piss. Right, you're at a festival and you're drinking something that's 3.2%.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, normal prices everywhere.
That's really nice, and I think that's such a commendable thing as well. And the reason I think the reason they do it, but they do use it to their own advantage, as you've mentioned. They do it for security, so they don't want people taking glass in there to throw at people or throw at acts. That's the idea, but they have gone the other way and really charged you through the nose. If it's so it is quite upsetting in that way. But I like how you're making it available to everyone, and I hope it's one of these things where
the thing is, though, if you're the sort of person who wants to throw something at a band, you'll find something. Do you know what I mean? You're in a field. There's stones. You've got in your pockets. You've got, like, have you felt the weight of a £2 coin? You skim that off someone's head, that's going to leave a mark. That
I tell you what, like Sophie Ellis-Bextor had a lot of stuff thrown at her as well. Play your songs.
Oh God, I sing your fucking song.
But you're right, though. You're absolutely right. I suppose it's kind of like the resourcefulness of people. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can definitely see that. So,
or maybe I'll have a rule. No, like you can take in plastic bottles, like of cider or whatever, and you can take cans. But yeah, no glass bottles then. No glass.
Well, what I see a lot of people do at festivals is like they pour stuff into a certain flask anyway. So yeah, or pour them into like plastic bottles. So that works. I think that's a safety precaution. Well, I don't know why I'm setting up safety precautions at your imaginary festival, but I am doing it anyway.
I don't think anybody who comes to my festival is going to be the sort of person to get aggro. I don't think the lineup attracts that sort of crowd, to be honest.
That's absolutely fair enough. You mentioned not liking Carlsberg. Is there in particular booze that you would like to be sold at your festival?
Now, you see, I've always been a cider drinker all my life, like Scrumpy Jack. I think cider is a very festival drink. And so I think Scrumpy Jack cider's got to be available. I'm going to ban Wanker's gin. Right. There's gin, but there's not gin that's got all sorts of crap in it. Right. And this movement to have like, oh, it's gin, but it tastes like jam roly-poly. And you pay... And it's £6 a single. No, no. There's normal gin. You can get a bit of Gordon's, and it's £1.50 a shot.
Lovely stuff. Yeah. So
it's nice and affordable. Scrumpy Jack cider. I'm saying all this. I quite like Ponzi whiskey.
Yeah.
I like Lafroig whiskey. I think pretty much everything, but no Carlsberg.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a bit of quality control, and
absolutely.
Carlsberg's not happening.
Well, I love the idea that you can get red jam roly-poly gin, because I will be all over that. I'm buying shares in that straight away.
Really, I bet someone's made it.
Probably.
Someone's made it. I've just got the way that people got overexcited about gin.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, it's actually quite nice just when it's gin, and it's stronger. You get proper twatted.
So before we go into your lineup, and I don't want to ruin anything in the future, so do stop me if this is trending on anything in the future. But
okay.
So obviously, Barry, you're a fan of the paranormal, and you're the co-host of the Parapod as well. So would you have any?
Well done on restraining yourself there. And not calling me the sub co-host.
Well, yeah, that's true. I've been re-listening to it recently, and I was going to call you the host, then the sub co-host, and then I put you back up to the co-host.
Co-host, nice. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So obviously you are the co-host of the Parapod. So would you have any ghost-seeking activities at the festival? Is it got any paranormal edge to it?
Well, I think Northumberland's quite a sort of spiritual. I mean, there's a lot of history there in Northumberland. When back in the day when you had William Wallace and people like that crossing the border. And all those sort of stories. There was a lot of blood spilt on the ground in Northumberland because it was, if you're not geographically aware of what Northumberland is, you've sort of got, it's like, you've got, London, then the Midlands, then you get to the north, that people call Yorkshire, and then you get to the north, which is Newcastle, which is where I'm from. And then you've got a big gap of nothing. And then you've got Scotland, that big gap of nothing's Northumberland.
Yeah.
So that's where, when the Scots were invading, that's where they'd have been coming across, and that's where a lot of the battles would have been. And so obviously there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of castles and things like that. in terms of, I don't think you could do ghost hunting at a festival because it's not really. I mean, for a start, there's too many drugs.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Drugs are legal at my festival.
Oh, lovely. So next to the whiskey, there is some smack.
Oh no, not smack. Come on, it's a bit classier than that. We've got a don't ask, don't tell policy towards drugs. So
Gotcha.
If you want to come and like don't be a dickhead. It is, just try and restrain yourself a little bit. But if you want to walk around and smoke whatever you like to smoke, and I'm not saying this for myself, I'm not a weed smoker, but if you want to walk around the Elektronika festival with a spliff, you are more than welcome in my eyes. Whatever makes you happy. I'd rather people did that than. I've always thought that when you see like people go on about should cannabis be legalized, I was just thinking, have any of these people saying no ever been to a city centre on a Saturday night and seen what alcohol does? It's nobody's ever stamped out a joint and went, fucking come on then.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's not an aggressive thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the legalization of like drugs as well, like there's a really good book called Bad Cop Good War, and it's basically a police undercover police person's account of how the war on drugs doesn't quite work. It's about the idea that the only people you are convicting are the people who are victims to drug abuse, if you know what I mean. Like you're not really attacking the drug laws or anything like that. So all you're doing is creating a system of like of just victimizing people who are who because no one does severe drugs for no reason. There has to be like a trauma there, if you know what I mean. Or usually it's a trauma there. So it's one of these things where I find it's a policy close to my heart, to be honest. It's one of these things where you're absolutely right as well. Like I think weed is such an easygoing thing as well. So It
doesn't breed violence in the way that alcohol does, and I say that as somebody who has been brutally attacked by somebody who was very, very drunk. They went to prison for what they did.
I'm really sorry.
Their attack was so bad, and it was alcohol. It was booze.
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, Barry. But I'm glad that
everything. A long time ago.
Yeah. Well, just talking about ghost hunting, but I guess you were saying that you couldn't quite do any paranormal activities during the festival because there's drugs.
Too many. I don't think if anybody came back from a festival and said that they'd seen a ghost, I don't think anyone would take them seriously at all, because it's not a very scientific condition. I say that like I set up scientific conditions. I try. And walking around with a meter that I know does something, but I'm not 100% sure what.
Well, I think there's definitely scope for like a ghost seeking festival in the future as well. So if you,
I'd like to do one. I could maybe try and set something up, but it's just the bigger the number of people, it's all about being quiet and listening to subtle changes.
That's okay. You have to forgive my ignorance there, because what I essentially asked was, let's have a nice, peaceful ghost-seeking experiment whilst there's Kasabian blasting over the speakers. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't quite work.
I mean, when the wind blows the right way when Download's on, I can hear it when I've got the window
really
open. Amazing. So loud.
I think my idea might not be suitable there, but I'm glad I asked it, because but I think it's now time to head to your festival stages and see who you have playing.
About to drop some acid like I know I should, but I just remember that I left it in the club. I don't know how I'll get my high. I take a look around and know I sigh, but then my salvation, it comes through, cause I'm inhaling pure O2, cause I'm going into the oxygen tank, cause I'm going into the oxygen tank, That was actually quite disappointing.
Barry, can you tell us more about your Friday night lineup?
So the Friday night, now, I don't think a Friday night is very, the first night of a festival, I think is about settling in.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the time people can be waiting on people arriving and, I think it's too stressful to get into the swing of things. So I'm not actually going to have any bands on the first night, but there is a comedy tent, and for one night, the Thursday night, there's a lineup of comedians, but they've got an electronic theme to them.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to go for, there's going to be a compere and there's going to be 2 acts. The compere isn't so witty musical because I don't think that really works with the compere, but my compere is going to be Ross Noble.
Lovely stuff.
I'm going to have Ross Noble because I think when it comes to improvising and talking off the top of the head, I don't think there's anyone better for a festival than Ross, really.
Couldn't agree more.
Plus, I think he's a sort of perfect festival person.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd have Ross Noble comparing, and the first act, I would say in the support slot, but I don't think he is in the support slot because of the act who he is. But there's a reason that he goes on before the second act. The first act is Bill Bailey.
Oh, wow.
I think when nobody knows music better than Bill Bailey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's multi-talented, and also because I've collected some of Bill's work, and he's incredibly good on synth and keyboard. So I would definitely have Bill on opening.
I've actually, funnily enough, I actually saw Bill Bailey play Sonosphere, which was a metal festival in Nebworth about 10 years ago. And he played just before Iron Maiden, I think, or just before it was on the Sunday, and he played before either Metallica or Iron Maiden. I thought that's pretty magnificent right there as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What was he like?
Yeah, it was really funny. So the way it works Sonosphere is that there's 2 stages. Well, there's other stages, but there's 2 main stages. So the idea is that they're kind of back to back, so that you go to watch one act, and on the other stage they set up. So once that act finishes, you go over and watch the next act. So it's pretty much back and forth for the whole day. Okay. So Bill Bailey was the final act on the second stage, if you know what I mean. So he was headlining that stage technically, and what it means that he got like a really funny comedy bit. He got us dancing to BBC News music and stuff like that. And
yes, I know that routine. Yeah, very good.
And it felt like a festival act. It felt perfect, right? And I think Bill Bailey is underutilized at British festivals. He should be there all the time. He's brilliant.
He should be all of them. He should be your go-to at festival, I think. But the act is on second, and for the sake of your podcast and your listeners, I'm not going to say the full name of this act because the first word is a word that some people find uncomfortable. It's the C-bomb, but it isn't spelt with a C, it's spelt with a K. Yeah. So it's that word, the C-bomb. I know it doesn't sit comfortably with people, so I'm not going to say it, but Kool and the Gang? Well, this guy is... and the Gang.
Yeah.
Have you heard of him?
He's quite. I've never really listened to them, to be fair, but I know they're quite big. They're quite popular. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they did a lot of stuff at Edinburgh as well. Because I remember them. I think they put dicks all over people's posters with the band's name, which is it was a great publicity stunt. And this is the thing, everyone says they because it is and the Gang. The reality is it's one bloke. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one bloke who is from Basildon and the home of Vince Clarke as well. He's very good at synths and he sings the most horrific comedy songs.
Yeah.
In a very pleasant, upbeat synth style.
Yeah.
And it's utterly hilarious. I mean, I saw him at Download and he was doing the comedy tent, and poor act who was on before him, because it felt like the whole festival was in the comedy tent to see him, and they were literally chanting, going, "We won, we won."
Yeah.
And the songs are like, he can't even say the titles of the songs.
Yeah.
They're so horrific. But he recently had a top 5. He got to number 5 in the Christmas chart, and this went unreported because the BBC never even mentioned it. He wrote a song called "Boris Johnson is a
Yeah.
And yeah, he got to number 5 with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he used to do the Fringe, and he had a great publicity stunt where, because it's sort of crude humor, where he would have like just a crude drawing of male genitalia,
and
he just had hundreds of sheets of them, just like as stickers, which, and all that, they had a little QR code on one of the testicles and the website address, and he just gave them away to the audience. And what they did was the audience went out, and of course a lot of people's Edinburgh posters is people looking shocked or with their mouths open. People just got his stickers and stuck them all over other comedians' posters. It caused a huge row in Edinburgh. And Edinburgh Council went round and they sent him an email, a letter saying, you've got to stop doing this because, as he puts it, you know, council officers had to go around pulling off hundreds of cocks. But then it became the phenomenon of the ghost cock. Because all of the posters had a tear where the sticker once was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I'd have him because he's a perfect festival act, I think, and very funny.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Is there anyone else you would like at your comedy tent as well?
I'm just going to stick with those two.
Brilliant.
I'm just going to have those two doing an hour each, and Ross mucking around as much as he wants.
That sounds amazing. So let's quickly head to your Saturday. But before we do so, do you have a bit of a nightlife at your festival? There's a lot of partying.
I think it would be sort of encouraged to go onto the beach and have fires and sit around. And like, I think on the Thursday night, I think it's more about just chilling out, having a beer and getting ready for the big sort of Friday, for the Saturday and Sunday nights, for the big nights ahead.
Let's go straight onto the Saturday. So who is the first artist you have on your Saturday?
The first act I have now, I've got to be totally honest. Now, this is where we get into the problem, is that I only really listen to one band, and I only really know about one band, and that band is Erasure.
Yes.
If you don't know who Erasure are, I promise you know the song A Little Respect.
Yeah.
And that's not the R-E-S-P-E-C-T, not that one. You get that one? Not that's the one. I'm so in love with you. Yeah. That's Erasure. Now, I'm pretty much obsessed with them, in that I don't really listen to anything else apart from that band, because because I've got obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's the way that my brain works, in that if I listen to a song, go, oh, that's a good song, but it's not as good as Sometimes by Erasure, so I'll listen to Sometimes by Erasure. I can't enjoy something else when I know there's a better option, so I kind of only listen to one band, which makes it difficult when having other bands, but there are ones that I like. I don't know much about them, but their music I will listen to because I do find it enjoyable.
I think that's really fascinating, the fact that you've kind of listened to this band. Have you always been into them, or were they the first band you got into, or what
happened was I used to tape songs off the radio when I was a kid, because I'm an old man now. I'm 40 this month, so this was back in the days when you used to press play and record, and your tape deck would record whatever was on the radio. And I just used to record songs that I liked. And then just one day, I think my mum said to me, she went, why are you just taping Erasure songs? And I didn't know what Erasure songs were. I didn't know Erasure were a band. And it just turns out, by chance, all the songs I was taping were Erasure. And then I bought a best of, pop 20 hits. And then that was just the start of it. Then I started collecting the back catalogue, and again, part of the OCD, I had to collect everything. So I now own everything by Erasure. I've, like, on my iPhone, I've got albums which are just Vince Clarke sound checking. There's literally there's nothing by them I haven't got. So
so do you think that you may be Erasure's biggest fan?
No. I think I'm up there. I'm definitely part of the hardcore.
Yeah.
But there's bigger. I mean, there's people who've got the the master tapes and things like that of their recordings, and people who go to every concert that they like when they're on tour, they'll travel with the band to all the gigs. And I've never done that. I'll go and see 1 or 2 max of a tour. Otherwise, I'd never want to sicken myself of seeing them live. It's got to be a unique thing. So that's why they're only playing once at this festival.
So how many times have you seen them live personally?
I've lost count, but I've not missed a tour since 1997.
Wow, that's remarkable.
Every tour they've done since 1997, I've seen, and that includes sort of in-store performances and acoustic tours and things like that. So yeah, I've been present at everything.
So I think Erasure have some big hits, and they're a pop duo, Andy Bell and Vince Clarke, and they've been on the go for a while as well. They released another album in 2020, so they have about 18 albums. Is that about right?
I think 18 studio albums. Yeah. They're still going strong. The album that came out last year got to number 4 in the charts. And the one that came out in, I think it was 2018 or 2017, World Be Gone, that was number 5 in the charts. They still sell. And they're kind of known as an 80s group, which I find frustrating because they're still going. But also, majority of the hits were in the 90s.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier your favorite band was that you liked more the 90s stuff now rather than the 80s stuff. And do you feel that you like more the obscure back catalogue, or do you still love the hits as well? Whereabouts does your love lie with Erasure?
I think there's a thing in music and with bands where it's very sort of cool to kind of go, oh no, well, I really like, and then to name some obscure track of an album that was only released in Japan. And the reality is that my favourite Erasure songs were hits. A Little Respect, I Love to Hate You, Chorus, Blue Savannah, Breath of Life, big songs. And they're the best ones. I mean, I do like the B-sides and things like that, and I do think the B-sides are very, very strong. But the hits are the strongest. They're hits for a reason. So I don't think there's any shame with being, is it popularist?
Yeah, well, I think populist might be something slightly different. I think that might be linked to Trump. It's like a political term as well. But so maybe avoid those terminology.
Okay.
We've kind of talked about Erasure on the phone beforehand about this as well, and you kind of openly said that you only really like one band, and I think like. You obviously at the start of this podcast you said like, oh, I only really like one band, but actually I think that's firstly it adds something different to this podcast because I think it really having one particular band that you've loved for your whole life and knowing the back like ins and outs, and I think that's really remarkable. But also I think it's just it's okay to. There's no shame in liking a certain band or liking the hits as well. I think that's, of course, you are. They're amazing. There's lots of great. They're hits for a reason. You know what I mean? Like
and people. I think the problem with Erasure is that Erasure were never cool to like. They sort of came at a time when there was always this supposed rivalry between Erasure and the Pet Shop Boys, which I don't think ever existed between the bands. I think it exists between fans. Fans bitch and argue. Even to this day, like there's forums where Erasure fans slag off Pet Shop Boys and vice versa. And Pet Shop Boys were always the more trendy. They were always the more, like they're very cool. But I think there's something very. I'm not going to slag off the Pet Shop Boys because then I've become a stereotypical Erasure fan.
Is that the thing that you shouted out during the concert in the live show?
It's not.
Pet Shop Boys!
No, there's something that doesn't sound authentic about the Pet Shop Boys. There's something about their synth sound that doesn't sit right. And the fact is they use programmers. Whereas Vince Clarke literally does everything himself and he knows the technology like nobody else on the planet does. So Erasure sound always sound very real. I think the other reason is that they've always been mocked, and it's been, very. It comes down to homophobia. Mm-hmm. Because Andy Bell has always been very out, he's always been honest about his sexuality. And also the way that, not so much these days, but in the past, he would be on stage in a rubber leotard or, slowly doing a Victorian strip show or wearing a cowboy costume with the back cut out of the arse. It's always been very flamboyant and camp. And that's always, what people are like, things are changing in the world and attitudes are changing, but I think there is still just blatant homophobia.
Absolutely. And I think that does come out in a lot of different ways as well. And you have to forgive me for not doing a full sweep of the catalogue of Erasure, but does Andy Bell talk about like his identity or gender identity or sexual politics in his songs?
There's the album that came out before the current one, that was a lot more political, and there was, it was a very downbeat album, I thought, and it's not sort of one that I would listen to on a regular basis. But prior to that, I think there's maybe one song which is about coming out as gay, called Hideaway. Apart from that, nothing really. It's all just upbeat, stuff with a strong, catchy chorus. There's very little in there. There's one which is called Fingers and Thumbs, which when you hear now, when you saw, like at the time, nobody knew it, but he was HIV positive. That's when he found out, or he found out a few years previous, and he did this song. It was all about, I think the chorus is, "You've gone and blown it all." And that's sort of, but at the time nobody knew what that meant. It just sounded like an upbeat pop song. But no, there's very little of him. There's very little politics in Erasure's music.
I guess I think that obviously with a lot of pop success, I think that does you kind of have to do the least agitation possible as well. So you can't be like kind of talking about systems or talking about I guess it allows. Well, not always, but I think particularly from the 80s onwards, like it's maybe less politics than like a lot of modern songs, or because I listen to a lot of punk, and that's entirely pretty much all political, if you know what I mean. So or at least the ideology behind it is. When that's what attracts me, but also I think that there's a space for just fun, entertaining songs.
Yeah, just a bit of upbeat nonsense. My favourite Erasure song, I've no idea what it's about really. It's a song called Chorus.
Yeah,
and I just absolutely love it, and live it's phenomenal. But I've no idea what the song's about.
How many times do you think total, live and by yourself, have you listened to Chorus, do you reckon?
Oh, thousands.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, thousands.
And do you have no idea what it is whatsoever?
No idea. The chorus is, "And they covered up the sun until the birds had flown away and the fishes in the sea had gone to sleep."
Yeah.
No idea. No idea. But it's great, and it's a great chorus.
So we're talking about your Saturday, and are Erasure the only band on that day?
No. There are support acts. I can't tell you much about the music, the support bands, but I know that they do stuff that I like. So the first band I'm going to have on is a band called Churches.
Oh yeah, is that the Churches? Is that the
with the V in it? I've recently got. I heard one of their songs and I really liked it. It was the sort of synth sound that I like. So I've recently got their albums, and I couldn't tell you the names of the songs, but I just play the albums, and I really enjoy their sort of synth sound.
Lovely.
Then the band after that is a band, again, don't know a huge amount about, but I'm gradually getting more into them. There's a band called Sparks.
Yes.
Which is the Male Brothers.
Yeah, Ron and Russell Mail from I think it's from Los Angeles, I believe. I might be wrong there, but and Sparks has a lot of similar sounds and to Erasure. I felt because I listened to them. Obviously, different in a lot of different ways, but I think they are.
Well, I think that Sparks have done every genre of music. They certainly had a phase where they were sounding very Erasure-y, where they sort of moved into doing synth stuff. But I think currently they're pretty much, drums and guitar and keyboard sort of band. They're not synthy at all now.
Yeah, and they've done a lot of albums. They've done 24 studio albums as well. And have you ever seen them live by any chance? Or do you know much about?
I haven't. I was going to go and see them live, but the pandemic's seen to that, and I can't. They're in their 80s.
Are they actually?
So I can't see them getting out on the road in packed auditoriums. I think they're definitely in the at-risk category, but they sound. I've watched the last tour, and they sound fantastic. They sound great.
Something about them which really kind of like. They sound really fresh today. They release like lots of albums quite regularly. They seem quite sharp. I also say they experiment with a lot of the form as well. And also it's two brothers, and apparently Russell is a very animated, hyperactive frontman, but Ron is at the back with deadpan and scowling as well. And I think that's quite funny as well.
Deadpan, straight, and that pretty much is Erasure as well.
Oh, is it?
You've got Andy Bell jumping all over the place wearing hot pants, and then Vince Clarke stood behind a keyboard pretty much motionless wearing a suit.
Do you think you like Sparks because they're very similar to Erasure?
Possibly. But I think just the sound of the music. I mean, it's a guy called, is it Giorgio Moroder, who did some of their synth stuff, and that's a specific time in music history, and it's a very specific sound, which is similar to Erasure. But then, Sparks went and did a song called When Do I Get to Sing My Way, which incidentally is a wonderful Vince Clarke remix.
Yeah.
And that song, for me, is pure early 90s. It's I think it's my favorite Sparks track.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then closing is Erasure.
Yes, wonderful.
Doing an hour and a half.
I mean, if Erasure weren't headlining your festival, there's something seriously wrong.
Something's gone really wrong, yeah.
And only for 90 minutes? Did you mention that you wanted to kind of keep it pure for you? You didn't want to overdo it?
And 90 minutes is fine, but then once they're done, there's then a late night surprise sort of dance into the night, because Vince Clarke obviously his music is very electronic, and he did a project called 2 Squared with Paul Hartnell, and I think a bit of late night sort of fast hardcore electro to round up the night, get that going till 2 a.m. Yeah, them two. So lovely. Yeah,
I think you get all of it there, don't you? You get the some awesome support bands, lots of different sounds, and then you got Erasure headlining and then dancing to the night. That's like a perfect day, right?
Yeah.
To wash it down with a lovely pint of Carlsberg as well.
And then for the last night, it's a bit more chilled out. It's a bit more, there's sort of a thing, because I think the last night of a festival is you sort of wind down.
Yeah.
It's getting ready to go home. Now, I promise you that none of this is a piss take.
Yeah.
The first act is a band called Reed and Caroline.
Yeah.
Who I discovered because they're signed to Vince Clarke's record label. Very similar sound to Vince, very electronic. She's got an amazing voice. I don't think they're doing much together anymore, but yeah, I would have them on. The second act would be, and I promise you, I would have Daphne and Celeste.
Yes, yeah. So anyone who doesn't know Daphne and Celeste, could you tell them who Daphne and Celeste are?
Daphne and Celeste were a manufactured girl duo who did a couple of songs. I think one was called Ooh Stick You.
Yeah.
And another one was called Ugly. And if you had to draw a manufactured pop band, it was them. Probably best known for doing Reading Festival.
Yes, I know this. Yeah.
Probably, and they were meant to go on before somebody like Rage Against the Machine or something like that. The band that was on after them was not appropriate to teenage girls dancing around doing bubblegum pop.
Yeah.
And they go and watch the footage on YouTube. It's if it could be thrown at those girls, it was. And
they were very resourceful. They were very resourceful. They got stones. They got logs. They got everything.
They got everything. Apparently, somebody threw a wheelchair. And I can't remember who. I'm sure it's one of the girls who tells the story. But yeah, they hated them, and it's quite. I mean, you look at it now, and you just think, hang on, these are two teenagers. These are two young girls who are just, they're there to make money for some record label. And, the hatred feels a bit unjustified.
Yeah, they've done quite well out of it, though, because it's matured quite well. Because, like, everyone's looking at that footage recently, and tons of bottles are being thrown at them, and they're just, having a good time. And that is, if that's not a good metaphor for, like, how to do a comedy show, it's like, right.
What's more rock and roll than litres and litres of piss getting thrown at you in bottles that people have been saving up all day for because they hated them that much. There was so many bottles of piss, and just watch the first few seconds when they're on stage. It's like it's raining with people throwing, and they just stand there and smile and just do their songs, and just there's somebody holding up a sign saying "Die, Daphne and Celeste, die," and she looks at it and she goes, "Yeah, we will." And fair play to, and of course the pop dream ended for them very quickly. But they did randomly an electronic album a few years ago with a guy called Max Tundra.
Really?
And it's a fantastic album. It's really quirky underground electronic. He tweeted them and just said, "Hi, I make weird British pop songs. Would you fancy doing a reunion to do the vocals?" And one of them's a screenwriter now, and they basically just said, "All right, go on, it might be fun." And the music, it's called Daphne and Celeste Save the World, and they're really good electronic tracks, and it's really trendy as well. But people don't know it yet.
Yeah, that's amazing, and and what a great story as well. And with your Elektronika festival, it does, or Doddsload, it does. You've definitely gone a very novel route, but a very brilliant one, and I have to commend you for that. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Other than Daphne and Celeste and Reed and Caroline, who else have you got for your Sunday?
Two others. Sophie Ellis Bextor, not Sophie Ellis Bextor.
Not after that incident, no.
No. Sophie B. Hawkins. I don't know if you remember Sophie B. Hawkins.
I don't, unfortunately.
She did a song called Right Beside You, and Damn, I wish I was your lover. I'd rock you till the daylight comes. That it was.
I'm going to clip that just for my own personal use.
Please don't, because I cannot sing.
No, bless you. Yeah.
Yeah, Sophie B. Hawkins, who I think's amazing, and the closing act of the evening will be a band called Saint Etienne.
Yes, yeah, London-based band. Yeah, so tell us more about Saint Etienne. Yeah.
Saint Etienne, again, very, very electronic, definitely more trendy than Erasure were. I don't think it's successful, but yeah, they've got there's a song that they did called Like a Motorway, which has got, to me, a perfect synth sound. Very electronic, and the vocals by Sarah Cracknell are just sublime. Again, not a band I can say I know a great deal of, but I know the greatest hits.
Good.
And it's certainly the sort of music I like.
That's wonderful. And I have to, as I just said, like, your festival is so wonderful, and I think it's a lot of people will definitely love it. It's really cool. I think Elektronika is going to be very, very popular, Barry. And
it's an upbeat festival, very upbeat.
I like it. Well, let's go quickly and head to a final part of our podcast called Floor Fillers. As with event management, things are bound to go wrong. So here's a couple of hypothetical questions that you have to deal with in a way that you see fit. So,
okay.
Oh no, Erasure have cancelled last minute. Oh no, who do you get to replace your headliner?
Oh, can I upgrade one of the other acts?
Yes, you can do if you would like. Yeah.
Sparks
yeah.
can step in and lead the way, and I think everybody will be fine with it. Yeah, I think they'll be all right with it.
You know what, Barry? For the first time, for that question, right? I feel that's quite mean after the really lovely conversation we've had. So I usually do it as a bit of toying around. I usually put that question in because like people are talking about something they're passionate about, and it's a good curveball because it goes, okay, if you don't like that, what do you like? But yeah. I feel with you are just a bit harsh because you're like, I really love this band, so I'm putting them back in, and I'm putting them back in.
Okay, good,
brilliant. Okay, so fortunately for you, you have one extra slot to fill in your stage. However, your sponsors say you have to pick someone from your most recently played on Spotify or any other streaming service. Who would you pick from your most recently played?
Mike Oldfield, probably best known for doing Tubular Bells.
Yes.
Probably not a very popular bloke these days. I'm not 100% on this, but I think he might be a bit Brexit-y.
Yeah. Okay.
He strikes me as the type.
Yeah.
But he's done some great songs like Moonlight Shadow and things like that. And Tubular Bells is, it's an iconic piece of music.
Absolutely. One of your acts has forgotten their equipment, but good news, they can do an acoustic set, which might be a bit difficult at Elektronika. But which band, if you had to choose, would you choose to do an acoustic set?
Oh, Sparks.
Okay, yeah.
Erasure did a tour where they did it acoustic, and it was done in country and western style.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I love Erasure as a band, but out of Andy Bell and Vince Clarke, I'm bigger on Vince Clarke. I think it's the sound is more... An electronic sound is more important to me than a vocal. And that's not dissing Andy. It's more important than any vocalist in the world.
Amazing. Penultimately, Andy Bell acts like a total diva to you. How do you respond, or how do you get your revenge?
Now, you see, this has always been a worry because I've met them a few times. Mm. My friend Ian interviewed Andy Bell on his radio show. He had him on as a guest.
Yeah.
I actually went down to London to be in the studio because I just thought, how often am I going to get to sit in the room with Andy Bell? And it was great. We were just sat chatting and it's so dangerous when you're so into something. Like, can you imagine if Andy Bell or Vince Clarke told me to fuck off?
Yeah.
I'd never be able to listen to their music again without feeling a different emotion. And when you only like one band, that's too much of it. That's a really big gamble. So if Andy Bell acted like it, whatever he was being a diva about, Andy Bell is in the right.
Yeah.
And I will bend to his every whim and get whatever the problem is, I will fix it. And it's not Andy's fault.
Oh, bless you. So let's finish with this one. Your festival loves you, Barry, and they want you to sing one final song at the festival. If you had to join a band on stage to sing a song with the band, which one would you pick to sing?
It would be A Little Respect by Erasure.
That'd be amazing.
I don't think it could be anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, Chorus is my favourite song of all time, and I think it's Erasure's best song. But having been to many, many Erasure concerts, the feeling when the whole room is singing A Little Respect is, I mean, especially considering what the song's become. It's not just a very catchy song. It's taken on a lot of meaning for a lot of people in lots of bits of society, and respect is something that the world's missing a lot of. So I couldn't miss out on singing that with Andy Bell on stage, but with everybody singing as well. I don't even know if I'd like to be on stage singing it. I think I'd rather be in the audience singing it.
That's absolutely valid. But well, thank you so much, Barry, for coming on to this wonderful podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's been as I said, that's the end of the podcast. But thank you so much for joining us. And where can people find you online, Barry? And would you like to plug anything in particular?
You can find me on Twitter, which is Barry_Dodds, and there's also, if you just search for the Parapod, got the parapod.com. We've got a film that's coming out. Once things settle down a little bit, we're going to recommence the tour that we were just getting going on when COVID hit and ended this long dream that we'd had of making a film where we tried to find out definitively once and for all the truth about whether ghosts exist or not. And you'll have to go and see the film to find out if that question got answered.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for listening to Castival. And if you like what we do, please support. You can check out the past episodes for free on Apple and Spotify. You can also give us a follow at Castival Podcast. And whilst you're there, why don't you follow me at Matt House Comedy on Twitter and on Twitch and Instagram. Remember to give us a 5-star rating online and tweet about it once you can. But please join me on saying thank you to our wonderful guest, Barry Dodds.
Thank you for having me.